Happy Sunday, back to back Sundays, here again to talk about our June book club pick, our first book in our summer reading series, and it was A Harlem Wedding by Tiffany L. Warren. We had to reschedule, but we are back, and just come on in and we'll wait for Tiffany to join us. And let me put in what we're talking about so I can pin it to the top. I should have done this at the beginning. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hey Tiff, let me get you in here. Let me pin my comment. Come on in. I just sent you a invite to join, so you just accept it when it comes up. Let me do it again. Okay, see if you got that. And Tiffany, if you didn't get the invite, look down at the bottom. You can see where you can ask to join. There'll be like a little plus sign. Hello, everyone. We are talking about A Harlem Wedding with Tiffany Warren today. Let's see. One more time. See if you got that. Says you are unable to join. Maybe you can request at the bottom. You see like a little plus sign. And let me try it again. Oh, I see you asking. There we go. Let's see. Instagram's not working with us today. I accept it, Tiffany. Hmm. Not sure what's going on here. Send it one more time, Tiffany. Oops, sorry. Happy Sunday, everyone. Come right on in. We're just have some connection issues, so we're working through that. But as I said, we are talking. It won't let you resend. Okay, hold on. Let's see if you get mine. We may have to come out and go back in, or you may come out and come back in. That might work. So we're going to have Tiffany to go out of the thread and come back in and see if we can get her on. Not sure what the issue is, but as I said, we're talking a Harlem Wedding. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's such a good story. Okay, you got it, and click the invite. Okay, what's going on? Oh, here we go. Let's see if it works this time. I don't know what's going on. I've accepted it twice. We may have to come out all together and start over. Huh. This is so weird. Tiffany, it's saying is you're unable to join. So if you can just like get out of the conversation altogether and then come back in and let me know when you're back. Like leave the whole thread. Victoria had this issue too last Sunday. Hang in there with us. We're getting it. Let's see. Hello, come on in. We are having some connection issues with Tiffany, but we are going to get it. So hang tight. I'm super excited for this conversation. Okay, you're back. Okay, let me try this. Now see if you got that.
Ah, there
I kn-
I am. Oh my goodness.
It's the same thing Victoria had to do last week. We were talking about the exact same thing. So I don't know what's going on. The exact same
Either.
thing. So
But
how
I'm
are you?
here.
You're
I made
here.
it.
Yay.
Yes, I'm
I'm
great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for your patience and for all of your kind words. And I appreciate you hanging in there and letting me reschedule. But I'm so excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. And hey, cousin, I see my cousin in the
Yes, your
chat.
cousin's in here. I saw that pop up, and I'm like, I'll make sure she knows that her cousin is in here. So yes, got a family support for sure. Let me fix my camera. Okay, good. So how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm on my happy play at my happy place,
Oh, you're
so
in Martha's Vineyard.
yes.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us while you're on vacation. My goodness, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you'll see our friends today, so tell them hello,
I
Victoria
will.
and Rashonda, for
Yes.
sure. So we've talked to them both, and now you're the trifecta wrapping us up.
Yay!
Yeah.
The
So
Harlem Trio.
I mean, the Harlem Trio. So that was one of my questions too. I was like, wow, the Harlem. I've talked to all three, the Harlem Trio. But
Mhm.
I want to welcome you to Literary Wine. I'm to Literary. I'm thinking about my other show, Diverse Spines Book Chat. You are
Thank you.
a first timer with us.
Yes, this is my first
Yes,
time here. Mhm.
yes. And so you kicked off our summer reading series with your incredible. This book is so gorgeous, A
Thank
Harlem
you.
Wedding. Yes. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into publishing before we get started with the actual talking about the book.
So I started publishing and I got my first book deal in 2003.
Okay.
And it was a harrowing time for me. I had five small children. My youngest, when my first book was released, she was still nursing.
Oh
So
wow.
it was, that wonderful time during the early 2000s when there was a renaissance with Black authors and we
Yes.
were really popping. And I was able to get a book deal writing inspirational fiction. It's so crazy. I didn't even know that there was a genre called Christian fiction.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I didn't follow the industry. I know a lot of people now, especially with the rise of social media, you know the ins and outs of publishing even before you get started.
hmm
But back then, it was very much an insiders know all
Yes.
the things. And if you're outside of it, you don't really know. Like you could have found out the steps to get a book deal, but that's it. So I didn't know that there was a genre called Christian fiction. I just submitted what I had been writing, and I was signed by Walkworthy Press, who it was an imprint under Time Warner Books at the time. Now it's
hmm
Hachette.
hmm
And it was a wonderful time. I met so many people that I still am friends with 20 years later. Like you mentioned, Victoria and Rashonda. I met Rashonda at one of my very first book events. And, Victoria, I met her even before my first book came out. So this career of being in publishing and, just making sure I keep writing what I want to write, writing the
Yes.
things that I would read, the things that bring me joy. It's just been a wonderful journey. It's been over 20 years. I've written 30 plus
I was
books.
gonna
I
say
actually
30
stopped counting.
plus.
Yep. And so it's just been an awesome ride, and I'm happy to still be here in the trenches.
Yeah. And you've had some books that were adapted into for TV as well, right?
Yes, I had three book to film projects that are already out in the wild so far. Favorite Son Christmas, and The Sound of Christmas, which is an adaptation of a book called The Replacement Wife. I have one that I just produced with my husband in January. It's called A Sister Holiday, and it's an adaptation of my debut novel, What a Sister Should Do.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I'm I love the book to film and book to series thing that we're
hmm
seeing happening right now, just because these stories, they fit in multiple medium, and the people that love the book often come and love the movie or the series as well.
Yeah, I'm loving all the book to film. I just think, and I like the fact that it's happening for so many, Black women as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. So you've been in the game for a very long time.
Yes.
And
I've got gray
I
hairs
love the
now.
art. I mean, it's funny that you say, it was a Black woman writer renaissance in 2003, and then you see like, okay, yeah, now it's happening again, like started 2020, and then
Mhm.
here it is again. But I would beg to differ that it's always been a thing. It's just they're late to the game. You know what I mean?
That part,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, because
They are late
we've been doing the work. We've
and
been
been
writing.
writing. Yes, have been
Hmm.
writing, you
For
know,
sure.
for sure. So let's get to it. Let's talk about a Harlem Wedding.
Okay.
I know when I first saw the cover, I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely stunning. Had no idea what it was going to be about. And then when I
Hmm.
found out that it was about W.E.B. Du Bois's daughter, I was very surprised because I didn't really know anything about his daughter.
Hmm.
And so,
She is an
yeah,
unsung heroine. We hadn't heard too much about Yolande outside of the fact that she married Countee Cullen. Like I did
mhm,
know that. I'd known that part, that she married Countee Cullen and that it went up spectacularly in flames
yeah,
almost immediately. But I didn't really know about Yolande the person. I didn't realize that she was a princess of the Harlem Renaissance, that she
yeah.
was this it girl. I've been calling her the Lori Harvey of the Harlem
Yeah,
Renaissance, right?
I saw where you said that, and I kind of was
Mhm.
chuckling to myself because I was like, oh, okay, because she was, I mean, absent social media at the time, she was the girl.
Yes, she was. And she wasn't, she was in the newspapers. Every society column in every Black newspaper across the country was pretty much written by one journalist. And she loved to write about Yolande. If Yolande went to a bridge party, it was in the newspaper. If she, the day that she crossed over into Delta Sigma Theta
Yes.
was in the newspaper. That's how I found it. I didn't know that she was a Delta. So it's so many things that happen that was just documented about Yolande. I was surprised that I didn't know more about this young woman who she was. Listen, she lived out loud during the Harlem Renaissance. She had a good time.
I love that. So what was it that first drew you to her? Like, what did you know that when you wanted to write about her, I guess?
So I knew I wanted to write this story. Like I had an idea because, her marrying Countee Cullen, Countee being queer, that's just a
Yeah.
good setup, right? That's a good premise. Oh, this is going to be messy, right?
It's very messy.
Right. But then when I started to research Yolande and I saw that she had this journey where she's trying to live up to this huge legacy that
Hmm.
W.E.B. Du Bois has set out for her. And I was like, okay, that's good conflict, because I can't have a story without conflict. And then I need to know what is my character going to learn. So I have to look at the steps that she took in her life and what did she learn to get there from point A to point B. And there was a letter that she wrote to her father. She was head over heels in love with Jimmy Lunsford.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
she was asking for her father to buy her a musical instrument so that she could be in a class with Jimmy at Fisk, a music class.
Hmm.
She did not have a musical bone in her body, but she wanted an instrument so she could be in class with Jimmy. And the response from her father was so stern. It was so insane. It was like, I'm not paying Jimmy any attention. And then at
Hmm.
the end of the letter, he's like, it's it's best not to, join forces with someone over a sex attraction. What? I
Yeah.
said, listen, this is good, juicy conflict right here because she definitely is in love with this man and her father does not approve. And it was just a great setup to show that time period in her life
Yeah.
because we know nobody's story is exciting from cradle to grave, but that particular time in her life where she's defying her father and
Hmm.
trying to figure out who she is as a woman, I thought that was really a good space to just start and finish. And I was able to relate to her and her
Hmm.
struggles. And so that's for me, the character has to be relatable. There's got to be some drama. It's got to be
Yeah.
juicy. And with Jimmy Lunsford, we had that hero that you want to love and root for throughout the book as well.
Yeah. I'm curious about because the way, her dad was such a force, he's doing all these things and fighting for rights and everything, and what it must have taken to like try to stand up for yourself and develop your own identity in the shadow of all that, and still, want to please your dad. And so what type of research did you do? Because I'm sure, it had to be amazing. Like, what
Oh,
surprised you? What did you do?
Oh, so first of all, I went to Harlem for 3 weeks and I went to
Okay.
the library every day. Victoria, when she was researching Harlem Rhapsody, I was researching a Harlem Wedding. So we went to the
Okay.
library every day, the Schomburg Center, part of the
Uh-huh.
Harlem Public Library System. And we read letters on microfiche, just between Countee Cullen and Jesse Redmond Fawcett, between Countee and Harold Jackman, between Countee and Yolande, from Countee to W.E.B. All of these pieces and parts where you got to see. So it's almost like reading someone's text messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So say I meet a young lady and I want to be her friend, or she wants to be my friend, and I'm not interested. So what I'm going to tell my friends in the text message is, I met this girl, she was doing a lot, right? So you got to see that reaction. So I
Mm.
knew that Yolande met Countee in 1923. Then I see a letter from Countee to Harold Jackman that basically says Yolande is the solution to his problem. I'm like, oh, tell me
Ah.
more. What
Oh,
problem?
okay.
You know? And so putting the letters together in a timeline between different all the actors in
Mm-hmm.
the world, right? You get to see them communicating with each other. It so helped me build this story. One thing that surprised me is because I went into this with the misconception that it was an arranged marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But truly, Yolande and Countee were friends for 5 years before, they got married and before the proposal happened. I was surprised because I thought that they didn't know each other. They were really great friends.
Okay.
Countee was stuck in the friend zone, though, on
Yes.
purpose. But they were so close and they had a great affection for one another. It's just that they lived in two different worlds. Countee was very big in the artistic side, queer
Mm-hmm.
Harlem. They knew him. Everyone knew his secret. They knew at the wedding that it was a shenanigan taking place.
I mean,
So I loved that, to be able to show just every piece and part of, the world that was happening around us.
mm-hmm. And then you talk about being in the Schomburg Center with Victoria, because like I said, you're a time that was incredible for Black people,
Yeah.
right? And so you had Rashonda talking about With Love from Harlem, and
Mhm.
Victoria Harlem Rhapsody, and then your book, A Harlem Wedding. What do you think that, like, you can't speak for them, of course, but drew you all to this time period? Because there's so much overlap, but then
Yeah.
you're getting to see the lens through different people. Jessie um, Fawcett, she was a Delta,
Mhm.
Yolande Delta. And so I'm just kind of like, what drew you to this time period?
So I think there are times in Black American history, right, where there's such oppression and trauma
Mm.
that what comes out of that is great art, right? So during the 1920s, we had things like the Tulsa massacre
Yes.
happening. Right at the same time, we had this artistic revolution happening in Harlem. And so I think we're drawn to that time period because we're living in a renaissance right now.
Mm.
Severe oppression
Yeah.
of Black people still in this nation is now resulting in a surge of historical fiction
Mm-hmm.
and nonfiction projects that are really centering us in our journey. And so I think we're drawn to it because we're seeing echoes of that resilience that they had in the 1920s right now, 100 years later in 2026.
Yeah. Yes, that's so true. Yeah, it's so true. Um, let's talk a little bit about this wedding, because it was a big to do.
It was a big to do. It was the event of the year, and 3,000 people in
That's
a
a lot of people.
3,000. Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere with 3,000 people. Well, I was just at Black Romance Book Fest. There were
I was
3,000,
gonna say that's a lot of people there too.
right? So imagining that many people being crammed into a church
A
to
church.
witness the wedding of, she was Harlem royalty. And,
Yes.
you know, there, everyone who was anyone, they traveled in from out of town. They spilled out of the church onto the street.
Hmm.
And Yolande had 16 bridesmaids, which
Yes.
was one thing out of all of the wedding planning that was hers, because W.E.B. wanted her to reduce the number of bridesmaids. He felt
Mm-hmm.
too many. She was like, listen, you and Countee have done everything else.
Right.
This I'm having for me. And so, the wedding was a big spectacle. Langston Hughes was one of the groomsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Jackman was the best man, the handsomest man in Harlem. And Langston Hughes, as a joke, gave them a fruit basket for his gift
Yeah.
because everyone who knew Countee was like, what is happening?
Yes.
So,
What is happening? And let's talk about uh the role, like how you developed her character on the page, because we know it's historical fiction, but how you evolved her character on the page.
so Yolande, reading her scrapbooks is
Mm.
really what opened up a window into her soul and her struggles. Really, there was this one page in her scrapbook that really stood out to me, and I actually went to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. They have the physical copies of several of her scrapbooks that were lost in a storage locker in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a page in one of her scrapbooks where she's got a photograph of her father, a photograph of her mother, and one of herself. And underneath her father's image, she's written, "Let me be worthy."
Mm.
That let me know that that wasn't just a conflict of my book, it was a conflict of her life,
Okay.
wanting to be worthy of her father's praise, her father's legacy,
Uh-huh.
and everything. She wanted to be proof of the talented 10th theory. She wanted to be proof that she was gifted, and she wanted to have that proof. And she was surprisingly average, right? Average looks. She was a pretty girl, but she was not a stunner, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was a little overweight. She loved cake and sweets,
Yeah.
which I love that about her. And if C's and D's gets degrees was a person, it was Yolande. She barely
Right.
made it out of Fisk
She barely
alive.
did. Yes.
So, but she went into education herself. She went on and got her graduate studies, and she realized that she needed to give back. She was blessed with an education, and so she took those talents and she decided to become an educator in Baltimore. And for the rest of her life, she did that until her retirement. And so I love that Yolande was this person who she was a fun girl, but then she came into her purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason why there's this huge section about her crossing into Delta and then going to the first Delta convention that was in Harlem,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that had a great impact on her.
Yeah.
And it started to turn the tide of who she was as a human.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, you're thinking about like class and black respectability, and how much, like, do you think the idea of the talent?
Say the last part again.
Oh, because yes, it went out a little bit. I said,
Mhm.
how much did class and the idea of the talented tenth shape her choices?
Oh, it shaped everything.
Yeah.
Respectability politics, or just respectability in general, she was under a microscope.
Yeah.
Everybody watched every move that she made. So even when she was away at Fisk and having fun with Jimmy Lunsford, it got back to the women in Harlem. And then it got back to her father, right? And so she was under this, she had to do everything right. Even when their finances were not the greatest, she
Mm.
had the best clothing. She was going to Paris for the summer because they had to put this, image out there of
Yeah.
the Black elite. We are the talented 10th. And, of course, I believe there are flaws to that theory, but the reaching back part of it and lifting others up, I really think that Yolande embodied that, and that's why she wanted to become an educator. She found out that this thing that I have, this gift, this eliteness, this education, these resources, everyone doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And so I really think that shaped lots of her choices in her life.
I mean, she didn't even get to pick where she wanted to go to school.
No, she was going to Fisk. That was Papa's alma mater. That's it.
Yes, she did not even get to pick that. So yeah, I think it just shaped a lot of things in her life. And let's talk about, I like the whole idea of Harlem as a character.
Hmm.
So vivid. so clear.
Yes.
It transports you back. And so talk about like how you built that world and had it come out so fiercely on the page.
So when I went to stay in Harlem for weeks, one of the most beautiful things about Harlem is those brownstones where the Du Bois family lived, where the Black elite lived, where Alia Walker hosted her parties. They're still there, right?
Hmm.
We walked all over Harlem where the characters we went all over Harlem, going to the
Hmm.
places where the characters lived, where they loved, where they partied, where they worshiped. And the hotel that we stayed in, they're downstairs that like it is decorated with 1920s Harlem. And you go downstairs, the bartenders are dressed like they're in a speakeasy. And
Hmm.
it just made us kind of feel like we went back in time. We were in a little bit of a time machine, right? And so I think that I loved Harlem already, right? I
Hmm.
love present day Harlem, but going back and really walking in Yolande's shoes, reading her letters, reading about the parties she attended, looking up the nightclubs where she went and danced the night away. It truly made Harlem a character. I definitely, and Harlem in real life feels like it lives
Oh
and
yeah.
breathes when you're there. So for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, I think you wrote it beautifully on the page. Like it just
Thank you.
definitely came out on the page. I loved every aspect of it. And so what what's something that surprised you while writing or what was hard to write for this story?
What was hard was that when I turned in the first draft, right? My edit it was too long because I
Mm.
didn't want to leave these folks, right? My book was almost 500 pages when I turned it in, and my editor was like, this is really Yolande's story. And when I written it, the first draft had Jimmy's point of view and Yolande's.
Mm.
And we get to a point in the story where, and because you've read it, where we don't really want to know what Jimmy is doing because he's not with Yolande, right?
Right. Right.
But I had written this because
Uh-huh.
I wanted their paths to cross again, and my editor was like, we don't want to know these things because we love Jimmy and Yolande. So during the edit, I had to get rid of Jimmy's entire POV.
Mm.
Now, some of the scenes I kept because I just switched it to Yolande's perspective, which shows a different viewpoint and a different aspect of the scene that happened.
Mm.
But it was really hard for me to leave my Jimmy because I love Jimmy. I
Yeah.
love the way that I portrayed him
I loved
in,
him.
in the pages. So, I think some of those chapters that, I didn't throw them away. They're there
Hmm.
still. I think I might post a few just because I want people to know what I thought
Oh, that would
Jimmy
be a
was.
great idea.
Mhm.
Oh, you should. That would be great.
Yeah, because Jimmy, we got questions for Jimmy, right?
Yes.
After we have some questions about how he decided to get where he got. Like we know what Yolande was thinking when she walked down the aisle with Countee, but how did Jimmy get to where he got? You
Right.
know.
Right. Um, Talk about your approach on writing Countee, like with empathy, while also
Mhm.
being honest about what she was walking into.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing about Countee is he was I don't think he was being deceptive, right?
Mhm.
He knew that he was queer. However, he also knew, just like Yolande knew, that he had duty. He had a duty to procreate, to marry, to carry his family. He was adopted to carry his family's legacy forward. So I think he really thought he could make this thing work,
Yeah.
right? And just to underscore that, he remarried after he and Yolande divorced, right? And he stayed with that woman until he passed away. So the empathy that I have for Countee is that he was as much a victim of, the society they lived in as Yolande.
Yeah.
They both had very tough choices to make about their lives. And he wasn't in the closet to the people that he loved and dealt with outside of Yolande. Like his entire circle knew that he was
Hmm.
queer. And so it's not that he wasn't living his life, but he also was duty bound. And so seeing that, how they knew they had to give back to the Black race. He was gifted, he was talented,
Yeah.
he needed to uplift Black folks. Um, and so, because he knew that, he wanted to marry. And so, writing him with compassion is because I didn't just look at him as a DL man. I looked at
Mm-hmm.
him as a young Black gifted writer
Mm-hmm.
who, he was under societal pressures, and we can't when we look at it through that lens, it humanizes his struggle.
Right.
Um, Countee was hilarious. He and Yolande had this beautiful friendship, and I wanted to make sure that that came through on the pages, because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just this guy who's tricking this young woman. They both had a very tough time trying to live up to everybody's goals for them.
Yeah. A lot of us know W. Du Bois, as this large figure, what he did for the Black race and all that, but did writing him as a father change or complicate your own view of him?
Yeah,
Because
it's
I've struggled
complicated.
with it. I was struggling when I was reading about seeing that other side of him through this lens.
Yes, because I grew up like Black History Month every month. I even got to be W.E.B. in the poem W.E.B. versus Booker. It seems to me, said W.E.B. That was me in the poem,
Uh-huh.
right? So I knew W.E.B. Du Bois. He's one of the heroes of,
Yes.
civil rights movement. So I I struggled with seeing who he was as a human, as a father, as a
Mm-hmm.
husband, learning these things about him. But you know what I think, and this is the beauty of historical fiction, showing these folks who are ordinary people who did these extraordinary things, we get to look at them through the lens of their humanity. And it lets us know that we're not perfect either, but we can
Correct.
still do the extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what I really wanted to show is, yeah, he was an overbearing dad. What parent isn't, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And we all want things for our children. And so understanding that, yes, you can be, two things can be true. You can be an overbearing dad and a great leader. Two things can be true. You can be a philandering husband and
Listen,
you know
we got a
so
lot of that from Victoria's book, right?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so the dichotomy of W.E.B. Du Bois is it's the same with us. We all have, if you opened up anybody's closet full of skeletons, things would fall out that we wouldn't want the entire world to know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't still do great and extraordinary things just because you had a bad day or you had your worst day. So I think that is one of the main reasons why we should share historical fiction with young people who are in the formative years and making mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
falling forward. We want them to know that you can make mistakes and you can still be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I absolutely love historical fiction. I say this
Me
all the
too.
time. I mean, I think most of the books I pick are historical fiction, but what led you to historical fiction? Because I have such admiration for people that write it and write it well, and you do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And so what drew you to historical fiction?
It feels like legacy work, right? I've
Hmm.
been writing books for 20 years and I've written some of everything. I've written young adult, women's fiction, inspirational, sci fi. This feels important, right? These
Hmm.
stories that we're going and finding these unsung heroes and telling their stories and documenting them for perpetuity, right? I think it's important. And I may not always write historical fiction as my primary, but I'm always going to be looking for stories that we can't forget, because during this time where our history
Hmm.
is being attacked, where they're trying to erase us, we need to make sure that we are still taking care of our own stories and
Yes.
being this generation's griots and making sure that our stories are saved and told for generations to come.
I think that's so important. I mean, and I appreciate the work because talk about reclaiming Black women from the margins, right?
Yes.
So with the Unexpected Diva and with this book, you're talking about larger historical narratives, but then you're talking about the women that have been like pushed to the margins that people don't know anything about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I had never heard of Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield when I wrote The Unexpected Diva. I was like, wait a minute. She was the first black prima donna? Like I
Yeah.
didn't know she existed. The fact that she was singing opera, doing tours, two tours in the United States before the Civil War, formerly enslaved woman. I feel like she should be a household name. Everybody
Hmm.
should be the Black Swan.
Yeah.
And there are so many stories like that. And there's stories of trauma that need to be told, but there are also stories of triumph and resilience. And that is what I like to focus on in historical fiction, is finding those stories of where we defied the odds. And because that's what Black people do every day. We defy the odds. 500,000 Black women are out of work right now, but I see a
Yes.
whole lot of us, present company included, on the vineyard because we are resilient and we figure things out and we go forward, we go on. And I love that about us. I love our strength, I love our resilience, and I love our joy. It
Yeah.
is it, it's
Can't
it's
take it.
audacious.
Yes. I mean, really, and you can't
Yeah,
take it. It is. And saying that is like the perfect segue to my next question because I'm talking about um a woman versus the symbol, right? So Yolande, she's the daughter of W. Du Bois, Harlem Society princess. This woman, Delta, Contee's wife, but underneath, right? She's trying to figure it out,
yeah.
and figure out exactly what she wants.
Mhm.
So, what do you think your novel says about becoming a symbol for other people's expectation versus what you really want?
I think, and I say this is the theme of the novel,
Hmm.
Yolanda needed to learn what her worthiness was. That she was worthy of everything that she hoped for and dreamed for, even if other people thought she wasn't worthy of it, or even if, she didn't meet someone else's standard. We have to embrace and love ourselves
Yeah.
first and
Hmm.
understand our own worthiness first. And I think that that is what Yolande learned over the course of her young adult life is I am worthy. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of the love I deserve.
Yeah.
And, even though things didn't work out with her and Countee, she knew that she deserved something other than what everybody else had planned out for her. And I think that that is, you know, that's what we learn in coming of age. We learn that like the older women get, the more we give zero F's because
Yes.
we
Yes.
learn about our own worthiness and what we won't put up with. And
Hmm.
so I think is really at the heart of Yolande's journey.
Yeah, I just love the evolution of it. And I will have to agree with you on, I think the tide shifted for her when she went to the Delta Convention.
I believe.
Because I remember my first one. And
Mhm.
I know, from her perspective, being his daughter and then, everyone telling her what to do. And I didn't get a chance to talk about her mother, but she probably saw like all these wonderful Black women and
Yes.
all the things that they were doing and in
Mhm.
all the fields that they were in, just the that were in her presence.
Yes. And there was one of her sorors, Frances, I can't think of her last name right now, but she was an educator and she was very influential and she brought Yolande over. And it was like, how could these women not influence Yolande? How could
Hmm.
she not, even Jessie Redmond Fawcett, who I believe she looked up to because Yolande's friends were AKA. So it was like, okay, so how did she make it to Delta Land? I believe that she really admired Jessie, and
Hmm.
that's how she
Which
ended
is
up.
so interesting.
Right, very. That's
I
because her
mean,
father was a real slick with it, right?
I
He
mean,
was real slick.
real slick with it.
Yes,
Yeah, that's wow. Yes. So she was influenced by her because she came up in the book several times, and I was kind of like, hold on a
yeah,
second.
yeah. So Yolande interned at the Crisis magazine, which Jessie was the creative editor for.
Hmm.
So she had very much interaction with Jessie, and you know, it had to look at her as someone who was just someone to admire.
Yeah, yeah. And what about her relationship with her mom?
So it's so interesting. her relationship with her mom was very, very transactional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nina Du Bois was the caregiver and caretaker of their home. And so, like, when I would read the letters that Yolande would write to her mom, they were requests for things, right? Young women, oh, this is a list of what I need. But when she was sharing her hopes and dreams, she told it to Papa. She told Papa about Jimmy. Like, she would
Yeah.
mention Jimmy in passing in her letters to her mom, but she let Papa Du Bois know that how much she, was taken with him. Her, I think it's because Nina lost a child and Yolande was her rainbow baby.
Mm-hmm.
After she had, after their first son, Burkhart, died of diphtheria, Nina became a OCD a little bit, very much a germaphobe, and she was a helicopter mom to Yolande. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think because of that, their relationship wasn't as she was looking for a mentor, a female mentor, and she didn't really always have that in her mom.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about what's next, if you can share, like, what's next. But before you tell me what's next,
Mm-hmm.
what's the one thing that you want readers to take away from reading A Harlem Wedding?
Oh, just like Yolande is worthy, you're worthy. The
Okay.
way I signed the book, I started this at one event and now I've just kept it going. You are worthy. Because that is what I want everyone to take away when they read it.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. And
Yeah.
so what's next? What are you working on? Will it be historical fiction? If you can share.
So I do have a couple of historical fiction projects I'm working on, but then I have a legal thriller that I started
Oh,
years ago that I'm like, I don't know. I'm feeling this book right now. I've got my film coming out hopefully this Christmas. If not, it'll be next Christmas that we're in post production right now. So I don't know exactly what's next. And that's, you know, I used to feel like in publishing, you have to know what's next. But I
yeah.
feel like I'm okay with not knowing exactly what my next pub
I love
date is. Like that's a thing. What's your next pub date? I don't even know.
Okay, but you're working on stuff. I love the legal thriller because I feel there's needs so many more Black women in
Oh,
this
for sure.
genre, and the ones that are there now are killing it. And I just feel like we need more.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
awesome. Well, I thank you so much for helping me to reschedule, being in your happy place, and getting online on a Sunday. I truly appreciate it, and I'm gonna get so smile with this book. Okay. And then you guys, A Harlem Wedding, if you haven't read it, please, please, please make sure you get a copy. Thank you
yes.
so
And
much for joining us.
tell 5 people.
Yes, leave a review. That's very important. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us and enjoy your
Thanks.
vacation.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.